Wonderful. I think we've got it now.
Yeah, we're there now. So welcome again, Mother Chita. Sorry for the little hiccup at the beginning. I'm sure whatever has kept Saturday Prabhu out of this place for this moment must be something very serious. And unusually, he will always notify me. So, but when we're in the material world, we don't know whatever could be happening. I pray he's safe. It's in good condition. So we'll start now. Put the class on the screen, and then you can start.
Sure. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So we can have our Mangalacharna first, and then we'll get into the verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Ajnanate Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we have our verse. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16, Text 34. Yove mamati bharam asura vamsaragyam aksho inishatam apanudad atmatantraha tvam dushtam unapadam atmani paurushena Sampadayan yaduchigamyam abhibradangam. Listen. O personality of religion, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, you were also in a distressed condition, weakened in your standing strength, and thus he also incarnated by his internal energy in the family of the Yadus to relieve you. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
The Asuras want to enjoy a life of sense gratification, even at the cost of others' happiness. In order to fulfill this ambition, the Asuras, especially atheistic kings or state executive heads, try to equip themselves with all kinds of deadly weapons to bring about a war in a peaceful society. They have no ambition other than personal aggrandizement, and thus Mother Earth feels overburdened by such undue increases of military strength. By increase of the Asuric population, those who follow the principles of religion become unhappy, especially the devotees, or devas. In such a situation, the personality of Godhead incarnates to vanquish the unwanted Asuras and to reestablish the true principles of religion. This was the mission of Lord Sri Krishna, and he fulfilled it. Translation once more. O personality of religion, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, you were also in a distressed condition, weakened in your standing strength, and thus he also incarnated by his internal energy in the family of the Yadus to relieve you. So just to catch us all up on what is occurring in this particular verse, if we hadn't been tuning in every day to the Hare Krishna Africa Srimad Bhagavatam lectures, we have a very unique situation. Here we have the personality, the goddess of the earth, and she has appeared in the form of a cow. There seems to be an echo. There we go. So the personality of the goddess of the earth has appeared in the form of a cow. And she's speaking to a bull, who is actually none other than Dharmaraj. The personality, the personified form of Dharma, occupational duty, the personified form of the head of all religion, justice, truth, the emblem of all of the pillars of society. And she makes a comment that he has lost his strength in standing. He has 4 legs, but right now he's only standing on one of them. And symbolically, figuratively, literally, those 4 legs represent the 4 pillars of society, such as mercy, cleanliness, truth, compassion. All of those are gone except for truth. And even that one is shaky. And in this way, it kind of exemplifies the fact that Kali Yuga is such an age where everything, mercy, cleanliness, all of these wonderful qualities are in strong, strong decline. Truth is still there, kind of, sort of. The personality of Mother Earth has been saying that she's been overburdened, completely overburdened by demoniac personalities, evil-minded kings. And yet in the same breath, she says, I was completely overburdened. And I was saved by the grace of my Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this verse really reminded me that Krishna never leaves us stranded. We are coming off of the heels of Janmashtami. And this verse reminded me that Krishna absolutely makes his appearance, not just one time, but famously within Bhagavad Gita, he says, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious activities and a rise of irreligion. So Krishna makes his appearance not only then, but whenever and wherever, which means in our lives, every day, often. So just as Mother Earth is saying to this bull, who is none other than Dharmaraj, O personality of religion, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, you too were also in a distressed condition, and thus he incarnated in the family of the Yadus just to relieve you. So she's saying he's made his appearance, but not just for me, but also specifically for you. This is meant to be a great statement of hope for all of us. Krishna makes his appearance not simply to save Devaki and Vasudeva, his parents who were locked in a prison, not just to bring joy to the hearts of Nanda and Yashoda, the parents that he spent his childhood with, not just to save his cowherd friends and have wonderful loving relationships with all of the inhabitants of Vrindavan and all of those that he had wonderful life relationships with. But here, this is a statement of hope for us. Krishna appears every day within our lives just to save us. We shouldn't think that Krishna appears simply for the pure devotees and the rest of us are left to our own devices. Krishna appears at every moment, whenever and wherever His devotees are placed into difficulty, which includes us. We are absolutely his devotees. We have an unbreakable relationship with our Krishna. And so he appears often, whenever and wherever we are even having difficulties with the mind. Now it is up to us to look for Krishna. Where have we been relieved by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? There are countless ways every day in which we have been relieved and saved. And yet we discount those miracles. Here, we might think, oh, the goddess of the earth might feel some shame. After all, the goddess of the earth is one of the eternal consorts, in a way, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How could she have been overburdened? But here, this is the importance of speaking about our miracles. Sometimes we think, oh, such and such happened to me and I feel like I was saved, or such and such happened to me and this was a good thing that happened, and then we don't speak about it. Oh, that will just attract envy. Oh, if I speak about it, that will just lessen my blessings. But if we speak about it honestly, saying, I was in a precarious situation, and now all of a sudden I've been saved, I've been relieved by our Supreme Person, this gives hope to someone else. Just as Bhumi Devi is giving hope to Yamaraj, Dharmaraj, O personality of religion. Not only was I relieved, but you too were saved. He appeared in the family of the Yadus just to relieve you. Just for you. And because Krishna is so unlimited, he can appear just to relieve Bhumi Devi, who is the goddess of the earth. And he can also appear just to relieve Dharmaraj, the personality of religion. And so you think it doesn't just mean for this one purpose, and that's Krishna. Yes. He had one goal, that was simply to relieve the burden. He had one goal, and that was just to relieve the burden of Dharmaraj. He also had one goal, and that was just to have loving, sweet relationships with his people. He had one goal, and that was just to save us. Now, we just named like 4 or 5 goals, but still just one goal, because that's our Krishna. That is his inconceivable potency. Krishna is so inconceivable that he has 4 or 5 goals and it's still just one goal. What does this tell us? It tells us that all of the promises and the statements within Bhagavad Gita are true. Krishna says, I am seated in the hearts of every single living entity. Every single one. Which means that every single Krishna in every single heart simply has one goal. The Krishna in your heart has appeared simply to relieve you. And then he has done that unlimited amounts of times. Within every single atom, Krishna has appeared just to relieve that particular atom. Krishna has appeared within the heart of an animal just to relieve that animal. Krishna has appeared in our hearts and family members' hearts, in the hearts of trees, stones, movable and unmovable living entities, just to relieve them. So now we might think, okay, well, that's great, but then why am I in so much difficulty? If Krishna appeared just to relieve me, why am I not feeling relief? You know, sometimes we're feeling the opposite of the relief. What happens then? Is Krishna a liar? Well, no. Sometimes we have to develop the vision to see where Krishna is relieving us. Sometimes we get so attached to holding on to the situations that are causing our suffering. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we get so attached to holding on to the situations that are causing our suffering that Krishna has appeared to relieve us in our lives, and then we won't let him. We refuse to let him relieve us because we're too busy holding on to the causes of our suffering. We can give an example. Let's take a look at Kunti Devi. Kunti Devi happened to be the mother of the 5 Pandavas: Yudhishthir, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev. She also happened to be the aunt of Sri Krishna. She was related to Krishna's father, Vasudeva. This was his sister. She went through many trials and tribulations. She had 5 children, and then her husband died. And then she went to the kingdom where her husband was related to all of the current kings, etc., the government, and she went for help. And then that family that she went to for help tried to kill off her and her family in many, many ways. At one point, they build a house made of lac, which is like wax and dried grass and other incredibly highly flammable materials. Basically, the house should have come with a very strong warning: don't even let it sit in the sun too long. It was that flammable. The most flammable. The goal was that the house was made for Kunti and her children so that they would go there for a festival. While they were there for said festival, the opposing family members, headed by a prince named Duryodhan, who was the cousin of all of these Pandava children, he had paid someone to set fire to the palace. That fire would blaze out of control, and ultimately the goal was to burn Kunti and all of her children, and they'd be rid of them forever. Duryodhan would have no counterclaims to the throne, because it so happened that Kunti's eldest son, Yudhishthir, also seemed to have a claim to the throne. But he says, no problem. I can burn them all. Grand arson. And they'll be out of the way. I won't have anything to worry about. This is Duryodhan's mindset. Now, in the great Mahabharata epic where we hear about this wonderful, famous history, not only did the house not burn them alive, but they were given a clue beforehand. You all are in grave danger. Stay alert. In fact, you should probably build a tunnel that can work as an escape out of this palace. They follow the advice. They build a tunnel. And then in some versions of the Mahabharata, they set fire to the house themselves. Now we can think that was all their own hard work. Or we can understand it for what is truly happening. Krishna is their family member, and he has appeared just to save them. Even if they did not see him face to face at that moment, he is seated within everyone's heart. Chapter 15, verse 15 of Bhagavad Gita says, he's seated within everyone's heart, and from him come all remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So now we have all of this knowledge. The knowledge to maybe build a tunnel for escape. The knowledge to follow the good advice. The knowledge to not be so attached to, but why are they doing this to us? Why is this happening? The knowledge to get out of the way. They had the good knowledge to follow this advice and then set fire to the house themselves. How many times do we see that a situation has been planted against us? everything is stacked up against us. Everything looks like it should not work in our favor. And Krishna uses exactly that situation to build us up. That situation that was meant to make us crumble becomes our greatest asset, our most wonderful strength. This is Krishna appearing in our lives just to relieve us. And so, through the grace of Krishna, giving them such good advice, they make their way out of that fiery, perilous situation. They are walked through the fire, basically. They come out no scrapes, no scars, no nothing. Completely, utterly unharmed. And then Kunti says, we are not going back there. They live for several years, wandering through different forests and different villages. Kunti decides, I am not putting myself and my children back into that danger again. They go and they go to another village. They save people in that village. They become revered throughout very many villages. They go and they meet a princess. They marry the princess. And then Krishna arrives. Krishna comes to see them, even though they are in hiding. They have been without their kingdom for quite some time. They were royalty and they're living in poverty. I put that in quotes because maybe materially it might have looked like they had nothing. But the peace of mind that they had was worth so much more. And Krishna arrives. Krishna does not simply arrive by himself. He arrives with several family members, and he arrives with chariots filled with wealth for them as a wedding present. Krishna never leaves us stranded. Not ever. It is after Krishna arrives on that scene and gives them lots of wealth that they have independent of this other kingdom run by Duryodhana that he tells them, you should go back. Get your kingdom back. It is rightfully yours. And so it is on Krishna's order that they ever head back to that situation. But Kunti Devi, later on in her prayers, she says that, Krishna, you are always there for us. I know it is only because of you that we have been saved from infamy, from fire, from poison. You have saved my family from annihilation and ruin time after time after time. And I knew that through all of those obstacles, I was able to see you. Are we looking at the obstacles in our lives thinking, oh no, I'm going through this obstacle? But then with a little bit of excitement thinking, this obstacle is how I get to see God face to face. Or do we simply give up, thinking I'm in the midst of an obstacle, nothing can save me, that's it? We have to remind ourselves of this particular verse, especially when we are going through obstacles. When we are going through obstacles, it is our time to realize Krishna has appeared just for us. Krishna is appearing just for us. And somehow, the greater this obstacle, the closer I will see Krishna face to face. The more insurmountable this obstacle looks, the more insurmountable those blessings will be. Krishna has to create big things in our lives in order to create huge blessings. Krishna's blessings will always be bigger than the obstacle. He had to save his friends and family in Vrindavan as a little boy of 7 or 8 years old from a raging torrential hurricane that would have devastated the entire planet, let alone wipe one little village off the face of the earth. It was a huge storm. Krishna did something bigger. He lifts an entire mountain, not with effort, effortlessly, balances it on the pinky finger, right? As if that wasn't showing off his supremacy enough. because he's really showing off now. He's going to pick up a mountain as a little boy, balance it on his pinky. If any of you are ever wondering what a great feat this is, just try and balance anything on your pinky. Anything at all. It feels like the weakest limb of your entire body. And then he balanced it on the pinky of his left hand, his non-dominant hand. Anyone ever try to give yourself like that experiment when you're younger and you think, I'm going to be cool and learn how to write with my left hand if you're right-handed, or write with your non-dominant hand, and then you realize you don't even know how to hold a pen properly, and you're just like, everything looks like it's a cry for help or a ransom note. It looks like the worst handwriting you've ever done in your life. But this is Krishna holding a mountain on his non-dominant hand. I can't even hold a pencil with my non-dominant hand, let alone balance a mountain on the pinky of my non-dominant hand. It would not work. But this is Krishna. There's a big problem. The solution will be even bigger. When Krishna shows up in our lives, he doesn't show up small. He tends to show up in very large ways. It's up to us to see the large ways. And we should think with a little bit of excitement. The obstacles are here. Okay. This is a headache for me. Lord, this is not comfortable for me. But I know that this discomfort will allow me to see you face to face. Krishna is coming. If you're facing obstacles in your life, it means that Krishna is coming. We can take it on the word of Kunti Devi, who also happens to be an expansion of the potency of Mother Earth. So it all comes back to Bhumi Devi speaking this verse. She has full faith. I was overburdened, and yet I was relieved by the personality of Godhead. In fact, even as she's speaking this verse, she's still overburdened. She is still burdened with troubles and anxieties. In fact, we're about to see the personality of Kali mistreating this cow and this bull. She is not out of the danger zone, and yet she's focusing on the blessings. She's focusing on her strength, and her strength is Krishna's mercy. I was saved by my dearest friend. Look, you're saved too. We think, what kind of saving is this? He's standing on one leg. This majestic bull has been brought to his knees. He's about to be horribly abused and mistreated, beaten severely. And yet she's speaking about mercy. She has a heart filled with gratitude. How often do we experience miracles in our lives, and then the next day we wake up and decide that that was just a dream, that didn't really happen? It's like, oh, I was saved yesterday, but that was yesterday. And now today, I have a bigger problem. Let's talk about the problem at hand. What has God done for me lately? This is not the viewpoint of Bhumi and Dharmaraj. He's giving such encouragement. Look at how we've been saved in the past, and I'm sure we will be saved in the future. Look at what Krishna has done for us. How amazing is our dearest friend? How wonderful is our Krishna? So this verse is so important for us. O personality of religion, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. We should be shouting about our miracles to anyone who will listen. Guess what? I was saved. Guess what? I was relieved by the personality of Godhead. He appeared in my life just to save me. And moreover, I promise you, he will appear in your life just to save you. He will have no other reason. He will have no other business. Our Supreme Person will not be too busy to save you, because that will be his only reason for appearing in your life. Just to be merciful, kind, compassionate, and loving to you. If Kunti Devi had been so attached to staying as a queen in that kingdom, she would not have been able to take the good advice. She would not have been able to say, okay, burn this house to the ground. Let's use this weapon that was meant to kill us as our greatest strength, as our greatest asset. And let us leave this place. Let's make a new life somewhere else. How often are we removed from situations and all we can feel is angry with our Supreme Person? I can't believe you took this away from me. I can't believe you removed this person from my life. I cannot believe that you took this service away from me. But if we were not moved out of those situations, how are we going to be able to grow into all that Krishna decides that we should be? What if Krishna has a greater plan for us? What if Krishna has a greater persona for us? What if Krishna is trying to give some solace to the whole earth through us? The Pandavas had to fight for a long time for their kingdom. SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM says, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that Krishna wanted the Pandavas to become kings of the earth because he wanted his devotees to rule the earth. It wasn't easy. But if they had constantly questioned, why do we have to leave this troublesome situation? Why do we have to fight for it? If they were clinging to some false idea, they would not have been kings of the earth. Not just India, the entire earth. Krishna's planning out our lives. Now we have to let him. We have to allow him to plan out our lives. And I'll end with one more example. A few years ago, I had a meditation that was, I want to let God finish. Let him finish. How often do we pray for things and then interrupt God in the middle of his answer? We pray for something and God says, well, I don't think that would be good for us. And then we stop him right there. All right, let me stop you right there so that I can have a full meltdown about the whole situation. Let me have my temper tantrum. I can't believe that you're like this again. God, I've just been praying to you and doing all the right things. Why can't you just give me what I want? Meanwhile, we haven't let God finish. God was, well, I don't think that that's best for you, but I have something bigger and better. But no, we have to cut God off in the middle. I don't think that's best for you. Well, I cannot believe that you've done this. I've wasted my time worshiping you for however many decades I've been worshiping you. Better that I go off and I do things on my own where I absolutely know that I can't handle them on my own. But I'm going to do it anyway. Because I can't believe what kind of fair weather friend you could be. I can't believe you just abandoned me. It's like, what if God was still sitting there just waiting to say something? Not only did we cut God off, but now we said, now you've abandoned me. He didn't abandon us. He's standing right there. Case in point, the Pandavas had to fight for their kingdom, literally, on a battlefield. Two armies. Arjuna, the cousin brother of Krishna, celebrated best friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had a son named Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu was 16 years old and valiant, handsome, courageous, polite, good-natured, respectful, beautiful. Just the best child anyone could ask for. He was raised in part by his uncle, Sri Krishna. He happens to be the son of Subhadra, the sister of Krishna, and Arjuna, the cousin brother of Krishna. So talk about a lineage, right? You've got a lot to live up to. And he was raised by Krishna and taught weaponry by Krishna. And now Abhimanyu at 16 is engaged in battle, trying to help his family win their kingdom. Abhimanyu is killed on the battlefield at 16. He is ganged up on by all of these other warriors who are much older than him. Life expectancies at that time were much higher. Where many people, even Krishna himself, his lifespan was about 125 years long. So there were many people who were in their 80s and 90s and etc., and were older than Krishna even at this point, who ganged up on this poor boy, 16 years old, and he's killed. The Pandavas are beside themselves with grief. One might be wondering, this happened to Krishna's family? His direct family? If this happens to Krishna's family, then what good can there possibly be in the world anywhere? We'll get to that. Arjuna is particularly beside himself. He is grieving heavily, and finally, he asks questions unrelentingly. Hard questions. Who has done this? What has happened to my son? He had just gotten married. In fact, his new wife was pregnant. And now that's it. The candle, the light of my family has been snuffed out that easily? That's it? Who has done this? They come to find out that a king named Jayadratha had been keeping the older Pandavas at bay so that they could not come and save Abhimanyu when he was calling out for help, while the other kings ganged up on him. It went against all of the codes of conduct for battle. It was an unfair situation. Irreligious. And so Arjuna finds out that Jayadratha was kind of responsible for keeping them at bay, and he makes a vow. Tomorrow, before sunset, I will kill Jayadratha, or I will enter into blazing fire and effectively end my life. Krishna listens quietly. The next day, they enter into battle. It is a fierce battle. Everyone is fighting for their lives. The opposing army knows that if they can keep Jayadratha away from Arjuna, Arjuna will have no choice but to fulfill his vow. And if they get rid of Arjuna, they've won. The Pandavas will be so demoralized they can't possibly think of continuing to fight. Jayadratha is in hiding for the entire day. The battle rages on and on. Thousands of soldiers are killed. Finally, the soldiers look up into the darkened sky. Krishna, who is seated on the chariot of Arjuna as chariot driver, looks up into the darkened sky. The day is over. Conch shells blow, signaling that it is the end of battle for that day. And the opposing team begins to celebrate loudly, whooping and hollering, dancing. They have won. The battle is as good as won. That's it. Arjuna is devastated. His shoulders slump. His bow clatters to the floor of this chariot. He looks at his friend Krishna. What else can I do? I made a vow. That's it. It's over. It's done. Out comes Jayadratha, celebrating happily. And of course, talking a whole lot of junk. Right? And he's trash talking now. What was all this you were saying, Arjuna, about being such a valiant warrior? What was all this you were saying about being able to protect your family members? What can you do? Who can defeat me? Everyone has one reaction or the other. The Pandavas are in disbelief. How could this have happened? What? We've lost. We've lost everything. The other team is thinking they've lost. We've won it. Krishna looks up into the sky and brings Arjuna's attention to the sky. Somehow or other, the sky begins to brighten again. There seemed to have been an eclipse. And so, just for that short amount of time, long enough for Jayadratha to come out of hiding, it appeared as though the sun had set. But as the sun comes back out from behind the clouds and behind planets, and many people say from behind Krishna's own Sudarshan Chakra, as it comes back out, all of the armies look up to the sky. What is happening? There's a collective oh no moment. I would wager that there were very many expletives uttered at that moment that would only be able to be subtitled with stars and dashes and exclamation points and question marks. Everybody's now thinking, what in the why? How? Krishna looks at Arjuna. Kill him now, friend. However, what I think you should do is shoot your arrow in the direction of the northeast. What are you talking about? Just go with me. Shoot your arrow in the direction. Okay, fine. Arjuna is able to listen to good advice. And so he shoots his arrow, and that arrow beheads Jayadratha. That arrow also carries Jayadratha's head several miles out. And it lands on the lap of a sage. That sage opens his eyes and says, what in the world? What? Oh no! He stands up. The head falls onto the ground. And then the sage also dies. Okay, mysteries. Right? The mysteries. Let's let God finish. And let's understand that God has a way better vantage point and perspective from where God is at than we do. Abhimanyu is 16, the nephew of Krishna. Why? What is the deal with his death? Firstly, Abhimanyu is none other than the personified deity, the son of the moon. So there's a moon god. That moon god has a son. And when Krishna tells all of the demigods, you all should appear, right? We've heard about this. If any of us have been hearing any Janmashtami celebratory stories, there's a very fateful moment where Lord Vishnu tells all of the devas, you all should also appear in order to help me in my mission. So they all begin appearing. The moon god appears and they tell him, you have to send your son. He says, I'm too attached to my son. I love my son with all that I am. You have to send your son. This is God's order. It's got to help. It's fine. But I'll only be away from my son for 16 Earth years. I'm like, that's not a lot of time at all, you know. We devas, those Earth years go by very quickly. Like, I know. And that's about as long as I can stand to be away from my son. You've got 16 Earth years, and that's it. This son of the moon god becomes Abhimanyu. And so where it looks as though, why would God take away this youth? There was a very cosmic and karmic plan. So when we think about it, we think, why would God take away this person that I loved so much? One, who is it that can live forever in this place? There's no one. And what if this is part of a greater cosmic plan? What if this is not a punishment? What if this is not God hates you and so the uncle that you prayed for has now passed on? What if this is God hears you? And what if that uncle didn't pass on, but was then going to live a life with misery, hardship, pain, and suffering? We wouldn't want that. What if this is now that uncle has been welcomed back into a heavenly kingdom? And what if now that uncle that we prayed for that has now passed on has now become immortalized through our prayers, immortalized with their contact with the Supreme Person? So I am challenging all of us to look outside of our comfort zones when the bad things happen and understand that God is not punishing us. Now, we have another situation. We've got Jayadrat. Jayadrat was a very problematic person. He happened to be married to Duryodhan's sister. Now, Duryodhan famously he's one of 100. Right? When you ask, do you have any siblings? And then somebody says, yeah, I'm one of 4. Like I'm one of 4. He gets to say he's one of 101. So they had 100 sons and a daughter. Jayadrat was married to this one daughter. So he's the brother-in-law of Duryodhan. And he had tried to kidnap the wife of the Pandavas, Draupadi. He said, oh, beautiful woman, you are known as the most beautiful woman in the world. Why don't you come with me and be my wife? She says, I've got 5 husbands. I don't need another one. And he says, but you'd be better off with me. And he goes to abduct her. And Draupadi does something that I love. First, she calls out to her husbands who are off in the forest. And when they don't hear her, she winds up, reaches back, and punches this man in the face. And then she begins to punch him repeatedly. She's basically had it with people trying to mistreat her at this point. She was born of fire. She's got a very fiery nature, and it's always one of my most favorite parts of the Mahabharata. I'm always just like waiting. I'm like, yes, and here's the comeuppance. She punches him in the face. She fights him off long enough where her husbands come and they arrive on the scene. They capture him, and they think, we should kill you. By all, we have all the rights to kill you, but we won't, because you happen to be the husband of our cousin sister. But back then, family was just family. So you happen to be the husband of our sister, so we won't kill you. They embarrass him. They cut off all of his hair. They tie him up like a wild animal. And they leave 5 tufts of hair so that he will be reminded of who gave him this justice. Jayadrat is so upset, he goes and he prays to Lord Shiva. He does a lot of tapasya. And when Lord Shiva appears before him, he says, I want a boon whereby I am able to kill the Pandavas. Lord Shiva says, that's impossible. I can't give that to you. They're personally protected by Krishna. Sorry. He says, fine. Then I want a boon that I can hold them at bay. He says, yeah, I can do that. You can't kill them, but you can keep them occupied in battle. He says, I also want a boon that whoever causes my head to touch the ground, their head will crack into many, many pieces and they'll die. Lord Shiva says, okay, so be it. No problem. Jayadrat now has all of these boons, which is one, how he was able to keep the Pandavas away so that they were not able to save Abhimanyu. But this is also why Krishna tells Arjuna, shoot your arrow that way. Don't just kill him. Carry it that way. About so-and-so miles, right over there is a sage. Make it happen. Arjuna is so proficient that he can't see the sage. He can't see anything, but he knows how to follow Krishna's directions. He does so. That sage happened to be his father. His father opens his eyes and sees the head on his lap and says, oh no, The head falls onto the floor. Both father and son die. This is Krishna. Sometimes we have to let him finish. Had Jayadratha let the eclipse happen, had he not been so eager to gloat, he might have saved his own life. What I think is most wonderful is that Krishna was never going to let Arjuna jump into fire. He saves him from such a vow several times in his life. But Krishna was never going to allow this to happen. In some versions of Mahabharata, it is stated that Krishna says he was often pacing up, spending sleepless nights, unable to think about anything other than how he was going to save his Pandava devotees. What? You mean to tell me Krishna has sleepless nights thinking about how he's going to save all of us? And we think Krishna is callous and doesn't care. We have to let God finish. If Arjuna had been really trigger happy and Krishna says, kill him, and he would have just killed him, he might have brought about his own destruction. But Krishna says, no, shoot your arrow that way. There's a sage. He can't see the sage. This is all of us. We can't see the ending. We can't see the blessing. But can we have faith in Krishna through it? Can we follow directions with faith? Can we follow Krishna's guidance with that faith? That I can't see the ending. I can't even see the blessing that Krishna is talking about. I can't see the goal. I can't see the target. It is so far off, I can't see it. But Krishna has told me to keep going. Okay. Okay, Lord, I'm going to keep going. Do we have the faith that Krishna will actually wrap up the obstacle and bring us to greater heights and greater blessings? Arjuna knew. Krishna has never left me stranded before. He won't leave me stranded now. And the entire time, this is a story of faith. At the end of this war, the Pandavas speak to Krishna and they say, "Oh Krishna, if anyone hears our story, no one is going to worship you. No one will want to worship you. Looking at all of the obstacles and trials and tribulations that we've been through in our lives as your family and devotees, no one will want to worship you." But Krishna's response is, and this is why I've brought you to this point, so that they understand that I give my mercy to my people. I give my mercy to my devotees. So on one hand, they may see the trials and tribulations, but they will also see how I brought you through all of them. They will see how I personally mapped out your life to make it better than you could have ever imagined. And the obstacles didn't stop coming because that is the nature of the material world. The obstacles didn't stop coming for Bhumi Devi, but she is able to revel in the fact that she was relieved by the personality of Godhead. The Lord put his lotus hand over my life. The Lord placed his feet upon me, and I was blessed. Can we look back at our lives and remember the same thing? Yes, there have been trials. Yes, there may have been health issues. Yes, there may have been fire in our lives, literal fire, figurative fire, metaphorical fire. There may have been fires in our lives. Have we been able to see how that fire built us up for greater and greater blessings? I was just hearing there's a pine cone, right? And to get the seeds out of the pine cone, it needs fire. Lightning strikes a forest, and then there's a forest fire. That fire then begins to burn many of the trees. That fire does two things. It opens the seeds that are hidden within the pine cones, but it also creates a lush underbrush and soil for new trees to grow. The fire is necessary. Are we able to look at our lives and see, okay, there's a lightning strike, and then there was fire? Do we stop at the fire and say, oh, Krishna, you've abandoned me? Or do we understand that this fire is coming before some of the greatest blessings I will ever see in my life? Do we have faith? Can we strengthen that faith to know for certain that Krishna has never left me stranded? This fire is opening up seeds of incalculable blessings, miracles the likes of which we have never ever seen before. Why? Because the Lord has appeared just to relieve and bless you. He has no other purpose in your life than to bless you. So if he is moving you out of situations, know that those situations are not good for you. Know that he is moving you out of those situations to build you up for bigger and better blessings. Some of us would not be preachers without the hardships of life. Without a global quarantine and pandemic, I don't think I would be preaching. And now look, I was a pujari on the altar 3-4 days a week, serving my Radha Govinda, and I could be very angry about that. Because now I'm in a different stage, in a different space. And I'm not on the altar as much anymore, or at all, but every day I get to tell people how Krishna has relieved me, how my life has been relieved by my personality of Godhead. I get to end each day and say, oh, Srila Prabhupada, oh, Grandpa, today was a good day because somehow I've repeated what you said. If I had been attached to the way my life or the way I thought my life was supposed to go, I would not be here speaking to all of you. And that is a blessing. That's a crowning glory. There's one story that I heard. There was someone taking photography and taking video. And I think it was a deity installation. And Srila Prabhupada was there. And there was someone standing in front of the camera. And they tapped that devotee on the shoulder and they said, if you stand right here in front, then you will be able to see this momentous occasion. But if you just move a little bit to the right, the whole world and for all antiquity and for the future, for all posterity, everyone will be able to see this miraculous event. If we stand in the way of our blessings, yes, maybe we will be saved. If we get out of Krishna's way and we allow him to shape and mold our lives the way he thinks, then the entire world will be benefited through our one miracle. We have to get out of the way. We have to let God finish. And we have to know that Krishna never, ever leaves us stranded. Thank you so much, dear devotees. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you for bearing with me and listening to me for however long. It is always such a joy.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother ACYUTA. Each and every time you give class, you just take us completely away from this material world and take us back to Krishna. Look, it's so amazing. The story, it's just like I'm hearing the stories afresh, as if I'm just hearing them for the first time. Thank you so much. Beautifully rendered. I really appreciate the way you and then looking at the verse, I was looking at the verse from a different perspective. And then when you come and the angle from which you took the class is really, really wonderful because it's actually it's realistic. It talks about our practical life in devotional service, and that is beautiful. That is really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I know that there are so many. I don't know how many hours you're going to stay here because your class has risen so many questions, and I can see the effect on the on the board. Yeah, I can see 2 hands up already. So we'll take it step by step. Sade Prabhu and Nick.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Salika Prabhu, and thank you so much for the ACYUTA Gopi. Your class, of course, as usual, is very interesting, and that means it also raises lots of questions. And I have so many questions, I will not be able to ask them all. But I was trying to sort out the questions I have, which one is like most pressing, so that if I do not get the opportunity to ask another question, I will be satisfied. And so that has brought me to this first question, which is in some way, it's a gossip. I'm gossiping. And gossiping means that the person I'm talking about, I do not want him or her to hear about it. And it's about Mother Bhumi. I mean, without Mother Bhumi, I will not be here. Whether I'm sitting or standing or squatting, lying, Mother Bhumi is giving me support. So I can't say so much about her, which may hurt her, but I have this question because the previous 3-4 verses of this chapter you just discussed, the personality of religion, Dhammaraj, is candidly and very much concerned manner asking Mother Bhumi what's going on with her. And Mother Bhumi beginning to answer Dhammaraj is also reminding Dhammaraj of problems he had also faced, which in our world, we say somebody is like being spiteful. And Mother Bhumi knows better that she should not be spiteful. But from the way I'm reading it, she's been spiteful because she is going through so much calamitous situation, and somebody is telling her what she is going through. And she is also telling the person, telling her, have you forgotten what you also went through? I mean, if we earthly beings behave this way, we will say somebody is being spiteful. And I don't believe Mother Bhumi is being spiteful. So please help me why Mother Bhumi is giving such answer to Dhammaraj. And I hope Mother Bhumi is not hearing this question.
Actually, I think she's hearing this question. And
oh my God, I'm dead.
But actually, I think she's hearing it happily because it's the same question
Okay.
that was asked by the rishis in Naimisharanya. What is this conversation? Why are they having this conversation? What happened? You know, this is why we have this chapter. So let's backtrack. Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked, right? All the way from text 19, Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you've become black, like in a darkened mood. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place? I have lost my own 3 legs and am now standing on only one. Are you lamenting for my state of existence, or are you in great anxiety because henceforth the unlawful meat-eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings, because no offerings, no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought? Are you feeling compunction for the unhappy women and children who are left forlorn by unscrupulous persons? Or are you happy because unhappy because the goddess of learning is being handled by Brahmins addicted to acts against the principles of religion? Or are you sorry to see that the Brahmins have taken shelter of administrative families that do not respect Brahminical culture? The so-called administrators are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they have put all state affairs into disorder. Are you now lamenting this disorder? Now the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, etc., and they are inclined to perform such anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this? O Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari incarnated himself as Lord Sri Krishna just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities here are transcendental, and they cement the path of liberation. Are you now bereft of his presence? You are probably now thinking of those activities and feeling sorry in their absence. Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away all your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods. The earthly deity, in the form of a cow, thus replied to the personality of religious principle in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once, you too were maintained by your 4 legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. In him reside truthfulness, cleanliness, intolerance of another's unhappiness. These are the things that we should be reminding ourselves of, by the way. In Krishna reside truthfulness, cleanliness, intolerance of another's unhappiness, the power to control anger, self-satisfaction, straightforwardness, steadiness of mind, control of the sense organs, responsibility, equality, tolerance, equanimity, faithfulness, knowledge, absence of sense enjoyment, leadership, chivalry, influence, the power to make everything possible, the discharge of proper duty, complete independence, dexterity, fullness of beauty, serenity, kind-heartedness, ingenuity, gentility, magnanimity, determination, perfection in all knowledge, proper execution, possession of all objects of enjoyment, joyfulness, immovability, fidelity, fame, worship, pridelessness, being as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, eternity, and many other transcendental qualities which are eternally present and never to be separated from him. That personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all goodness and beauty, Lord Sri Krishna has now closed his transcendental pastimes on the face of the earth. In his absence, the age of Kali has spread its influence everywhere. So I am sorry to see this condition of existence. I am thinking about myself and also, O best among the demigods, about you, as well as about all the demigods, sages, and denizens of Pitriloka, devotees of the Lord, and all men obedient to the system of Varna and Ashram in human society. Lakshmiji, the goddess of fortune, whose glance of grace was sought by demigods like Brahma, and for whom they surrendered many a day unto the personality of Godhead, gave up her own abode in the forest of lotus flowers, and engaged herself in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. I was endowed with specific powers to supersede the fortune of all the 3 planetary systems by being decorated with the impressions of the flag, thunderbolt, elephant, driving rod, and lotus flower, which are signs of the lotus feet of the Lord. So she's saying Lakshmi Devi gave up her abode of lotuses to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, and I have been the abode of those lotus feet. But at the end, when I felt I was so fortunate, the Lord left me. Now today's, O personality of religion, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, you were also in a distressed condition, weakened in your standing state, and thus he also incarnated by his internal energy in the family of the Yadus just to relieve you. Who therefore can tolerate the pangs of separation from that supreme personality of Godhead? He could conquer the gravity and passionate wrath of his sweethearts like Satyabhama by his sweet smile of love, pleasing glance, and hearty appeals. When he traversed my surface, the earth's surface, I would be immersed in the dust of his lotus feet, and thus would be sumptuously covered with grass, which appeared like hairs standing on me out of pleasure. While the earth and the personality of religion were thus engaged in conversation, the saintly King Parikshit reached the shore of the Saraswati River, which flowed towards the east. Why are they having this conversation? He looks at her and says, "What's happening with you? You all right? You don't look so good. Why do you look so forlorn?" She says, "You're right. I do look forlorn. I'm thinking of myself. I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of the future. I'm thinking of the fact that when I was the most happy, my Krishna left me. What blessings can I have now?" I think it's so wonderful that they're having this conversation, because it is natural for us to grieve the loss of what we think our blessings were. We think there's no other blessing left for us. It is natural for us to grieve. Being without my service of being a pujari, I grieved for months and months. It's natural. It's natural for us to sweat in the summer and shiver in the winter. It is natural for us to feel these things. But we have to seek out good association. That association brings us back to faith, because inevitably it makes us talk about the ways in which Krishna saved us before. And so here, Bhumi is expressing her most compassionate heart. Not bitterly, but thinking, what will happen now? How will the Lord save me now? I was overburdened and I went to my friend. I went to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma told me, "You go to Krishna. He'll save you." And the Lord did. He appeared. Now what's going to happen? Who has he left in charge? Has he left anyone that can give me solace? Now Maharaj Parikshit comes and he does save them. But what do we know as devotees? An even bigger blessing is coming. Krishna is coming again. The most wonderful thing is that Krishna does not simply appear only as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Kali Yuga. He has many Kali Yuga incarnations. Our most merciful is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But every region has their version of a Kali Yuga avatar. South India has Balaji. Shri Krishna comes as Srinivas, looking for his goddess Lakshmi, and he appears in Kali Yuga, placing his feet once again on Bhumi Devi. We have Kalki, who carries out his business at the end of Kali Yuga, but he is actually born long before, and he just stays and does meditation and tapasya. So Kalki has already incarnated. There are so many places where the Lord once again places his lotus feet on Bhumi Devi, because he stays true to his promise whenever and wherever. So Bhumi is looking, saying, "Oh, there are now more places of your religion. This place and this place and this place and this place and this place, and I am so overburdened." And then she remembers, I was overburdened and I was relieved of that burden. So we have to seek out that good association. We have to seek out the people who will say, "You don't look so good." And then we have to be honest with those people. She is showing us how to be honest. Bhumi Devi says famously within SRIMAD Bhagavatam, "I can bear any heavy thing except a person who is a liar." So she is showing us how to be completely open and truthful and vulnerable in the right association. Dharmaraj has come and said, "Just tell me all of your problems. We can come to a solution together." So she says, "I'm worried. Honestly speaking, I'm very worried." So worry is going to be a natural part of our spiritual advancement. Anxiety is going to be a natural part of our spiritual advancement. We are going to be worried about the future of our blessings, especially when we are in it. When we are in the situation and we can't see where Krishna is telling us to shoot the arrow, where Krishna is preparing us to shoot us as the arrow, when it feels like Krishna has us on the bowstring and the arrow of our life is being pulled tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, it's uncomfortable. We feel overburdened. We should learn to be honest. In the safe spaces, in that association that can help us, we should be honest. You're right, my friends. I'm worried. I don't know how this is going to work out. And they can remind us, oh, you remember? Do you remember when Krishna placed his lotus hand over your life? Do you remember when Krishna placed his feet over your life? You're right. We're worried. We don't know how this is going to work out. You can say, I'm also worried about you. I don't know how any of our lives are going to work out. There are wars and droughts and famines and all of these things. I don't know how any of this is going to work out, but I do know that when I was in trouble, Krishna saved me. I do know that when I was removed from one service, Krishna placed me in another service, bigger and more amazing than I could have ever dreamt for myself. I would have stayed in one corner and served in a very small way, and my Krishna decided, no, serve bigger. So I might be worried, but I know that I've been relieved by the personality of Godhead. You too have been relieved by the personality of Godhead. And our job is to remind each other of that fact. So I feel like this whole conversation is indicative of what will happen for us. It's a blueprint. We're always looking for blueprints. How do we act when blessings happen? How do we act when blessings don't come when we think they should? How do we act when we have to wait for the blessings? This is how. We come together and we talk with one another. We share open-heartedly with one another. We become vulnerable with one another. And then we speak about the blessings and miracles that have happened before and that will undoubtedly come again. I hope that answered the question.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yes, very right. Very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Mother Saki Devi, please kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna to the Gopi. So wonderful to hear your class. I was very taken back to remembering when you talked about Kunti putting herself into a situation, but having that faith in Krishna, even though she took herself out of that situation, but had to put herself back into the situation because Krishna asked her to. And it reminded me of Devaki and Vasudev having children, even though Kamsa continuously killed those children. And having faith is very important because you realize that even though you may not understand why something's happening, like you said, you have to let Krishna do it. Krishna has to be the controller. Otherwise, it may not work out the way you want it to. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you for being one of my most favorite people in the world.
Well, you know you're my favorite person.
But also, you know, we think about Vasudeva and Devaki continuing to have children, which I spoke about on Janmashtami. We can't even fathom seeing the brutal death of one child. 6 times they watched it happen. Now that's one part of the surrender. But Vasudev, if we want to talk about being out of situations and putting yourself back in with the surrender and trust in Krishna completely, Vasudev was free from the jail. He could have written a note. When the jail cell opened, he could have grabbed Devaki's hand and said, we're out of here, let's go. He goes to Vrindavan, having faith, crossing a river, having faith, picking up a girl child, having faith, surrendering again and again and again. Every moment of Vasudev's journey is about surrender and faith. Then he goes back and it says he replaces the shackles and locks the jail door. How many of us would be in a jail situation of our lives and we think, oh, we're out. And then on the strength of the promise of Krishna, we go back into jail? You think, Krishna, you're crazy. I'm not doing this. Do you know how upset I was in the first place? And then they don't simply stay in jail until, oh, well, Kamsa can't kill this child. Da, 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 they're done. They are under house arrest and in hellish conditions for the next almost 12 years. Years they were having faith in Krishna and surrendering to him every day. So sometimes when we think we see those situations come back around, we think, Krishna, why are you testing me? Why have you put me in this situation again? But no, maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's about those other people that Krishna has to handle. Maybe it's not about you. Maybe our job is to surrender and know that Krishna is using us as the arrow. It takes time.
Thank you very
Kamsa
much.
was tormenting them for years.
Mhm. Thank you very much. Beautiful, beautiful answers, beautiful questions. Shema Sakaprabhu, please can you unmute?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Achyuta Mataji. My humble obeisances to firstly Govind Devji behind you,
Right.
and my Srimati Radharani, most beloved Gigi, my sister, behind you, and then to you. I would really ask you, what do you feed to your naughty little Govind Devji? Because whenever I feel stressed, like, oh, I cannot do this, Krishna, I cannot do this, or related to my japa, my meditation, he's like, wait, kiddo, I have to send my Achyuta Devi. I'll send her. wait. And I'm like, अरे ये कैसे हो गया? So yeah, like many a times I see you on Instagram, I'm like, yeah, wait, I was facing this issue, and how did Achyuta Mataji just come up with the answer to the issue? So my humble obeisances to you, and thanks to you. And yeah, well, very well said that Krishna uses us. That okay, you are for the best. You cannot give up. You are for the best. And he, thus, as you say, our supreme bestie uses us as the arrow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for today's session.
And I do want to say, I mean, that is how we know that Paramatma is real. It's not me. Sometimes I give these messages because I'm trying to like remind myself, why am I sticking with this again? Same as Bhumi Devi and Dharmaraj are having this conversation and they're reminding each other, why are we having faith again? Oh, right. We had amazing times. Just a couple years ago, Krishna was here and he had placed his hand over our life. No problem. Right. I remember now. We begin to restabilize ourselves. So Paramatma is real because I can't know what's going on in your life. I can't know any of that. But what I do know for sure is that Krishna is seated within everyone's heart. And he finds ways to speak to you. So you should know for certain that Krishna is speaking to you. Krishna is interacting with you. Don't ever, ever doubt that, because the mind will try and make you doubt it. The mind will say, oh, that was just a coincidence. Or that was just something. Srila Prabhupada would say, there is no such thing as coincidence. Krishna is working in our lives. And sometimes the next question is, well, how do we know that this is Krishna's plan versus, whatever is our issue, our plan? To that, I say famously, Srila Prabhupada would always say, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of our Lord. How do we know it's Krishna's plan? It's all Krishna's plan. Just like when you're like, oh, well, but what about Abhimanyu? And he died when he was 16. Still Krishna's plan. Because the moon god did not want to be separated from his son. It is Krishna's plan. Krishna is having pastimes with each and every one of us. Now we decide how we react in the pastime. Do we play our part? And like the cowherd boys who were threatened by a forest fire, do we turn to Krishna immediately and say, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho, oh mighty armed Krishna, you have to save us. We are your own people. Or do we say, nah, I got it. Krishna, you can take a step back. I got this one. And do we charge into the blazing fire and then stumble out of it completely smoked out and burned out? You're like, I don't have it. Never mind, just take it. You take it. Can we surrender first? So we can remember those cowherd boys. We can remember that Krishna is having actual pastimes with us. And even when we're in difficulty, we turn to Krishna and we say, we are your very own people. We are your family members. And I know you're not going to do this to your family members. So I need you to fix it. I need you to fix it or fix me. Equip me to handle it. Because Krishna doesn't promise that obstacles will not happen. In fact, he probably promises that they will happen because that's a material world, right? That's the fine print of this place. It is wrought with obstacles. Even Krishna had obstacles. He was born at midnight in a hurricane, in a jail cell. Those are obstacles. And so he had obstacles. And then he promises us that he will get us through them. Just like the Pandavas, just like the people in the village of Vrindavan. He will move heaven, earth, and everything in between to help us through those obstacles. He will swallow a forest fire when it seems impossible. He will lift the mountain of our problems and balance it on the pinky of his left hand. He will mystically, magically transport us from the place of obstacle to the place of safety. He will restore and renew our lives whenever we need it. And I know this because he has done this for all of his people. These are not just stories, they are promises of Krishna's mercy. Are we looking through the Bhagavatam thinking, this is for me? Or are we looking at it saying, yeah, Krishna did that, that's a pure devotee, that's a pure devotee, that's a pure devotee, that's a pure devotee, and I'm just me? Are we looking for the promises? Are we looking at it where Krishna tells Arjuna, oh, declare it boldly, O son of Bharata, that my devotee is never vanquished? Are we too busy holding on to the fact that we decided to say we are not a devotee? Are we blocking our blessings? Don't do that. Let's get out of our own way and let's get out of Krishna's way. And let's remember that Krishna is absolutely having pastimes with each and every one of us. Whether we think we deserve it or not, Krishna is there because he said, because he promised. And I may do many things in this life, but one thing I won't do is I won't call my Guru Maharaj a liar. I won't call my Krishna a liar. And so when Krishna says, I have appeared just for you, when my Guru Maharaj says, you just do this and Krishna will handle the rest just for you, when Srila Prabhupada says, you just chant and you do the best you can and I'll handle the rest, I won't call them liars. I will challenge myself to have faith in those promises and to look at every page of Srimad Bhagavatam as a promise from my bestie to me. Thanks for coming to my TED
Wow.
Talk.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful. Really beautiful. You just talked about the Paramatma being real, and you just exhibited the right way because I was just going to ask you a question. So, how do we know which of the activities are Krishna's? And then before I could just utter it out, and you just answer the question. So, Krishna is real, Paramatma is real. Thank you very much. Murasaki, your hand is up. You have something to say.
Yeah, sorry. I have it just she's so amazing. And every time, like you just said, Paramatma is working, like she just answered all my questions. But I was gonna ask her to speak on the importance of association and faith, and she just did that. So there's no reason for me to even say it. So I was literally like, ACYUTA Gopi is one of my dear most beloved friends. And she and I are two peas in a pod, as you say. But she is like you know how you have a little, like people believe you have a little angel on your shoulder. And if I ever felt sad or depressed, or if I was challenged or going through anything, I literally will just put on one of her lectures on YouTube, watch it. And she's like Gurudev, like, you know how you'll listen to a class by Gurudev and he says exactly what you were lamenting about? And he'll tell you to be like the river Ganges, and no matter what's happening to you, that like she gets to her destination no matter what she's going through. Achyuta Gopi is just like that. Like no matter what we're going through, she'll say exactly what we needed to hear. And I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you, Saki, for complimenting that. Actually, I totally agree with you in that, because I've seen it happen so many times, and it has happened just right now again, right? I think, and then I think Shama Saki Prabhu also mentioned the same thing. It's just that is how Krishna empowers his devotees. You know, he gives the different empowerment, and then the particular devotee has a kind of particular empowerment, and he can just take it out of that devotee. Thank you, Mother Chita, for that. Where do we go from here?
I think we had Govinda Prabhu.
Yeah, Govinda Prabhu actually his hands up. He showed me his hand. Actually, I was just ruminating in my head what to do, because I still have some few things to talk about. But let's give it to Govinda Prabhu now. Govinda Prabhu, please kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna. Devotees, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Gurudev, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to Achyuta Gopi. Hare Krishna. Mother Achyuta, I don't have words to describe how much you have fed me this morning. And I can only say that we thank Krishna for his empowerment to you, and we thank you for empowering us. We pray that Krishna continue to empower you so you can empower the whole world. Thank you very, very much. And my question is, you know, every mother is looking for a very best thing that will help his children. And every father is desiring the same thing. You know, Mother Bhumi is supplying us everything that is required, most especially a place to stay, you know, food to eat, and everything. And all those things are pertaining to the body, which at the end of it all is going to vanish. And so what will be left with us is our souls, is ourselves. So just like every husband is expected to give protection to his wife and children, not only externals, like food and clothing, shelter, but most importantly, to educate and to lead the family to Krishna. So I'm just wondering, when Mother Bhumi was in difficulty, the world was overburdened with demoniac forces, she approached Lord Brahma and asked for help. So I was wondering, what is Mother Bhumi doing on our lives? Because the sinful activities is overburdened, the same thing as the atrocious kings were overburdening the earth. And she approached Lord Brahma. So I was wondering, is he doing something in the lives of the people on this planet Earth, we being her children?
I think kind of the question is, what are we doing to her? What are we doing to her life? Because she's saying that she was overburdened, but she's still being overburdened. She is actually not out of the place of suffering, even in this chapter. She doesn't ever get out of that place of suffering. As long as the earth is situated in this material world, there's going to be that duality of suffering. Yes, there's going to be happiness and lots of miracles and blessings when Krishna is present, placing his feet on the earth. And they say that whenever saintly people are there, this keeps the earth within orbit, right? It's like, if there are so many evil forces, what keeps the standing? What keeps everything from just crumbling? Our Shastras say that it is the presence of saintly people. If there is at least one pure devotee on the planet, we know it is so because the earth has not completely just imploded. So there is the presence of saintly people. There are pure devotees here to be had. Interestingly enough, we were talking about the role of parents in the life, mother and father. And an earlier chapter, Srila Prabhupada speaks in a purport about material nature being the mother of all of us, and how material nature has to have the job of disciplining the children. So we've all gotten here, we've gotten to this disciplinary realm. But he says that Krishna, as the father, sometimes the father doesn't like to have to put the disciplinary action on the child. They just want to be the hero. They want to come in and say, look, we'll go play basketball, we'll have a great time, I'll help you get your mind right. And they don't really want to. And so he says that Krishna doesn't necessarily really want to discipline all of us. He understands, he leaves that to material nature. Maya Devi is in charge of this disciplinary action. And Krishna swoops in to say, I'll be the hero. I'll come get you out. I'll even broker for your freedom. Right? If you're under punishment, sometimes one parent goes to the other parent and says, well, why don't you just take it easy on them? I think they've learned their lesson enough, you know? Or you have different family members that come in, well, maybe. I often have this with my nephews. I am constantly trying to save them from certain death from the things that they've done in opposition to their parents. And I go and I'm like, well, maybe don't kill them today. Maybe we could still use them. But this is Krishna in our lives. And so Bhumi, because she's been overburdened and she's been exploited and she also has to purge out all of these things. And so we'll see sometimes there are purges where it looks like Mother Nature is having a big, like she's got a fever, there's a heat wave and droughts. There are times when she's purging, there's a big hurricane, there's all these things. And they can have kind of impersonal views. But really what we're looking at is the loss of so many lives and so many people and all of these things. And there's such anxiety and so much worry. Why is this all happening? Because Krishna is constantly trying to remind us, get out of this temporary situation. This earth planet is a reflection of the place where you could live with me eternally, where there isn't this unending plague of worry and anxiety. Because really what happens is all of these things cause worry and anxiety and fear. Planetary things, right? The miseries caused by nature, miseries caused by other devas, miseries caused by our own mind and body. It's causing miserable, anxiety-filled situations. Krishna is constantly trying to remember us, leave this situation. You wanted a place where you could rule. I said, okay. Now I want you to leave this situation. Gone from here. Let Bhumi regain her real potency as part and parcel of Krishna's internal potency. She's saying, Lakshmi Devi left her abode of lotuses to serve the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna, I was the abode of those lotus feet. She knows she's just part and parcel of this Lakshmi potency of Shri Krishna. And yet, and still, I had the abode that Lakshmi Devi left for. Everybody was worshiping me. Everybody was giving the best that they had to me. And I was giving the best that I had to everyone and to Krishna. And then he left me. Now what do I do? Krishna is reminding us, don't stay in that place where everything is temporary, where there has to be this ebb and flow. And Krishna then uses his devotees to help remind us. So he uses Bhumi Devi, remind them, this is not the place where they want to be. Dharmaraj, remind them that even you are not exempt. Yamaraj, who is none other than Dharmaraj, is the Lord of justice and the Lord of death. He's in charge of meting out punishments to everyone, and still he is not exempt from the trials and tribulations. He is not exempt from needing to be saved by Krishna. He uses all of his devotees, remind them that this is not where they want to stay. O Bhumi Devi, give us your expansion as Kunti Devi. Remind them that your life will even be filled with trials and tribulations, that this is not where they want to stay. Remind them that their souls have an eternal place with me. O Arjuna, you will be my cousin brother. Now remind them that they are the soul and not the body. Remind them that this is not where they want to be and that they want to be eternally with me. And so I feel like this entire situation, which has so much anxiety and worry and misery, is meant, what are they doing for our lives and our souls? Reminding us that this is not the end all be all. This is not where we're supposed to be with all the limitations of this body. We belong in an eternal place where the only limitations are, well, how am I going to get to serve Krishna this day? And then Krishna helps us surmount those limitations to serve him in an unlimited variety of ways. We will not be limited in our service. We will not be limited in our capacity to serve. In fact, they say that in the spiritual world, even the devotees of Krishna can expand themselves to serve at many different places all at the same time. Because as part and parcels of Krishna, Krishna can be unlimited and in many places at once, and so therefore his devotees also can be. That is the glory of reaching this eternal platform. We are not sitting here now simply saying, oh, but I have to keep my day job, but how am I going to serve Krishna? Krishna says, the point of that day job is to remind you that this is not where you belong. You're going to have a boss that doesn't get you. You're going to have loads of people that don't get you. Even when they're devotees, they're not going to understand you. They're not going to get you. They're going to misunderstand your motivations. They're going to not want to deal with you. They're going to walk out of your life and all these things. And Krishna is reminding us, we don't belong here. Get out. Come be with me eternally where we can be happy. Where the only limitation is the challenge and the game of, how do I serve Krishna best this day? And as many unlimited ways as Krishna will allow me to.
Mother ACYUTA GOPI ki jai. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Shama Sakar Prabhu, please can you unmute?
Yes. I will not take much of your time, but I will just request all of you. Cows in Rajasthan, India, are dying due to the lumpy virus day by day in multiple numbers. I think today it was 200 cows in just 5 villages which died due to the virus. So I would request all of us to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantras for our Gaumata once, please.
I would also request that we chant it not just for those living entities, but there are so many innumerable living entities that are suffering.
Yes.
And
So
I mean, one of the most amazing things when she talks about all of the qualities of Krishna, there are so many. There's gentility, there's kind-heartedness, there's chivalry, there's intolerance of another's unhappiness, right? So we have so many things that are saying the same thing, that Krishna is not happy to see any of us suffering. The only reason I mention it like that is because there's often an epidemic and a virus of hatred that kills off people who look like me. And back when it was kind of reaching ahead and being very public about this virus and epidemic that was killing off people that looked like me, one devotee asked me, or asked a family member, they said, "How are you today?" Right? Just as we are seeing here, how are you? They said, "I'm not doing so well. I'm living with fear and anxiety. I'm living with worry because there is a virus of hatred that is killing off people who look like me, Black people, indiscriminately." And this devotee said to her, "Well, actually, you would do better to really focus on cow protection, because that's where our real wealth is." And I sat that day and I kind of cried, because I can't pray for cow protection unless I'm alive to do it. See that? See how that works? I can't pray for it unless I'm alive to do it. And so I don't want to discount the millions of living entities, not just cows in Rajasthan, cows everywhere, people everywhere. This material world, Srila Prabhupada said, is not fit for any gentle woman or gentle person. And so I feel as though one of the best things, the only best thing we can do, is surrender to the power of prayer and give ourselves a moment to really feel that compassion, not just for one section, but for all of it. For the earth herself, who is telling us in the form of a cow, "I'm overburdened. Don't think you will be any less overburdened." She is overburdened. So we can pray for all of the overburdened living entities. Oh my Govinda, for all of the overburdened living entities, you can lift up their burdens, just like you lifted up Govardhan Hill. You have promised to give protection to all of those living entities. So whether that protection looks like the protection I think should happen, you can give peace to their hearts and their minds and their souls, and allow them to know that you're working in all of our collective lives. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
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 Ram,
Rama,
Ram Ram, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Ram,
one more
Rama
time,
Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Ram,
Hare.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to our Govinda Dev, who gives pleasure to the cows and the senses and all of our lives.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prabhu, for that request, and thank you for response from the Ashita Gopi. This is beautiful. We spent
2
2
hours.
hours, 2 hours, and it's just like we shouldn't stop. But what to do? I'm just contemplating now. I'm having another hands up, and what? I guess you still.
I think we can take those 2 more if there's time, from Narayani Devi Dasi and Sarvamangala Devi.
Okay. Then. Okay, Sarva Mangalam, please kindly unmute and then let's take.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. I just logged in
to listen to your lecture. Whatever I heard, it was very awesome. I had a question for you, was that you mentioned that the devotees in the spiritual world can expand themselves as much as they can to serve Krishna. Krishna's potencies are unlimited, and ours are limited at times. So is there a limit for that as well? Like, I mean, we can expand unlimitedly as well, or I just needed to know. I was just curious.
We can even view it in the case of like it's like a drop of seawater and the ocean.
Yeah.
The seawater has all of the properties of the ocean, but it is infinitely smaller than the ocean. And we could even see those potencies of Shri Krishna manifest in people like our great teachers, people like Srila Prabhupada. We might think, oh, Srila Prabhupada would often say, so many people are looking to see a miracle. Oh, Swamiji, can you show me a miracle? This person can fly in the sky. He's like, I can too. I take an airplane, no problem. And so Srila Prabhupada would use this, and it was kind of a funny example, but it's actually true. These potencies exhibit themselves even within our limited material lives. Srila Prabhupada, the way he would translate books and wrote over 80 volumes, it is unheard of for anyone else within philosophy and academia to write these over 80 volumes of spiritual academic literature. It is unheard of. No one else was able to do that. And that, I'm sure, was Krishna. Because who starts at 70? And in the span of what, 11 years? Would any of us be able to compile that much of anything in just 11 years? That's it. So we can see how Krishna lends his potencies to us, even in a material situation. In the spiritual world, no holds barred. All the limitations are done. And it is said that even the land of Vrindavan expands and contracts throughout the day so that Krishna can get around easier. Even the boundaries of the earth itself, Sri Krishna's own personal version of his planet, it expands and contracts like a lotus. So the distance between this forest and that forest is not the same distance earlier in the day as it is later in the day. It gets shorter because, oh, Krishna's going home. He's been out all day. Let me make the distance shorter. Even the land has the ability to change and morph according to Krishna's desire. So what to speak of us living entities? All of the living entities have the ability to expand in order to perform service, because that is all we want. That's all that's within the heart. And when that's all that's in the heart, Krishna happily obliges.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think that's a beautiful answer to that question. And that reminds me of one of our Gurudev's famous quote, so Bhakti Maharaj, when he says that when our desire to serve exceeds our capacity to serve, and yet we do not hesitate to serve, then at that moment empowerment comes in our lives. So I think that's something you just saying, and that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Ndachite.
That has been
Thank
my
you.
definition for empowerment ever since I heard it. It was such like a poignant, beautiful, like, when our capacity to serve is limited and the service calls for something, and we know we can't do it. And yet we still don't hesitate to try our best. And that's it. We just have to try our best. It's been the key definition of empowerment for me ever since.
Me too. Me too. Same here. Thank you so much. Mother Narayani, she's there. I think, yeah, she's still here. Mother Narayani, you have something to say. Narayani Mataji, please, can you unmute? She's not coming up. Shriman Bharat, Ashari Prabhu, you're here. I don't know. If you're at the location where you can speak, I would like you to make some comments, if it's possible.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Mother Chuta Gopi. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice, wonderful lecture. Thank you, Mataji. I had a question in my mind, and it evaporates. I wish I could remember. But because the question lecture is so absorbing, I want to just keep thinking the lecture. So whatever was in my mind just kind of evaporated. But I think, maybe some other time. Thank you. If before you leave, I still get a chance to remember, I would come. Thank you very much, Mataji, for the wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Councilman Varapu, and thank you for the compliment. Sriman Sahadev, my dear brother, you have so much in your heart, and I know that the time wouldn't permit us for you to explode all of them. You have last comments, something to say before we allow Mother Achita to go?
Well, we are always honored and blessed to have Mother Achita's Association. And we would like to offer a sincere apology for the way the program was started today, because I was trying to imitate instead of following. I've heard that our previous acharyas, like the Goswamis, they used to sleep like 2 hours in a day. And I only had 2 hours of sleep yesterday. So I came home from work and I was staying behind my computer to start the class, and boom, I was knocked out. I fell asleep. So my wife woke me up. He says, "What's going on?" And it was already past time. So I learned a lesson that I don't have to imitate. I have to sleep. I'm still a struggling guy. But Mother Achita, thank you so much, and please accept the inconvenience, and we'll make sure it will not happen again. Hare Krishna.
No inconvenience. There was none whatsoever. I was happy just to be here.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Sahadev. I think you gave opportunity for 2 questions. I've got one, and I'm seeing Arishekar Prabhu's hands up, so I think we're going to take this one, then we can maybe call it a day from there. Arishekar Prabhu, please kindly unmute.
Thank you very much, Mother Chuta Gopi. Thank you. You are always coming out with some mind-blowing messages. So thank you very much. But I wonder this small clarification. In the course of your lecture, you were giving some examples about Krishna's mercy on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and you were talking about the story of Jayadratha. I think what I heard was like a little bit different. So I want clarification that I know Jayadratha, he himself performed the austerity to get the boon from Lord Shiva, that he can defile the Pandavas, 4 of the Pandavas, without excluding, he can defile the Pandavas excluding Arjuna. And then I also heard that the second boon, that whoever kills Jayadratha, if his head hits the ground, it will break into, the person's head will break into 1,000 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that boon, it was not Jayadratha himself who got that boon. It was Jayadratha's father who gave Jayadratha that boon. So yeah, I heard you say that the boon was given to Jayadratha. But I also heard, what I've heard was that it was Jayadratha's father who performed the austerities and get the boon for his son. So I want a little bit clarification on that.
I wholeheartedly accept your version. I wholeheartedly accept, and it does make the story tie up so much better, because the boon that he asks for becomes ultimately his destruction.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wholeheartedly accept. If there are any discrepancies, they are probably a fault on me. And if there is any discrepancy after that, that is not my fault. It is only because Krishna performs these pastimes many, many, many times. But I wholeheartedly accept your version.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gopi. Sometimes also, when we give class and when we recite stories, like you said in the class, sometimes the super soul guides us to speak in a particular way for a particular reason. And I like the way you put it when you were speaking, when you said something that Krishna is everything, everything. There is nothing outside of Krishna. So sometimes Krishna has a way of making certain things go through so that we can broaden our intelligence and understanding. So thank you very much also for that humble acceptance. I think I just wish we could continue like this, like the sake of my Mr. Ryan, so that we didn't stop. I've lost all my appetite for food, even though I was initially hungry before I started this class, but I lost all the appetite and I just wanted like maybe we should just continue. But anyway, like Saradev Prabhu said, we can't imitate. And I also want to take cue from his lessons, because if I try to do that, I might be imitating and I may get a punk on my head like Saradev got one today. So at this moment, we thank you so much, Mother Shite Gopi, for this wonderful association. And we're looking forward to you coming back on this platform again to give us a wonderful association. At this moment, we request all of the devotees to please kindly unmute themselves and let us do the normal rituals of loudly chanting the half lecture and association today. Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakaprabhavescha, Kripasya Vacha, Itaram Brahmavebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namah Namaha.
Vaishnava Thakur ki. Gopi Binande.
Hare
Hare Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So